Hi students, I'm going to try and do one read aloud each week, at least one, so that you can hear my voice and we can enjoy a story together while you're at home. So we're going to go ahead and read The Leprechaun's Gold. It's by Pamela Duncan Edwards and illustrated by Henry Cole. I picked this book because St. Patrick's Day was on Tuesday, March 17th, and it kind of got a little forgotten about with everything going on in our world. So let's go ahead and get started on this story. Here's the cover page. Illustrations in this book are beautiful. Long ago, before even your great-great-grandfather was born, there lived in a small village in Ireland a man known as Old Pat. Old Pat was a harpist, and a good one at that. Many a wedding was made the merrier by Old Pat's harp. In the same village dwelled young Tom. Tom had learned his own harp playing from Pat's teaching, but now Tom thought of himself as a better harpist than Old Pat. He was much given to boasting and bragging and charging the villagers great amounts of silver for his skills. Old Pat was humble and willing to play his music for free for those he knew had not the means to pay. "Foolish old man," scoffed young Tom. "What use is a gift if not to make you rich?" Old Pat replied. "I am rich in friends, and that is enough." We have two vocab words I hear that are important to go over. Humble is the opposite of bragging, right? If you're humble, he's not taking money, right? He's not making that choice to brag and to charge people. And another word here is scoffed. When you scoff at someone, it's like, oh, you almost look down at them with your voice. It is supposed to be that life would have continued along its way for Old Pat and young Tom had they not seen the announcement. "By the order of the king, harping contest to choose the finest harpist in Ireland at the royal palace. All may enter." To be known as the best harpist in Ireland would be an honor indeed, said Old Pat. "Don't waste your time, old man," sneered Tom. "It's a young man like myself that they'll be wanting." But Pat shook his head and gathered his few meager possessions for the journey. "Aha," thought young Tom, "if we travel together, he's sure to offer me a bite of his food. That would save me a penny or two." So a couple vocab words here. Sneering. When you're sneering, he's not speaking very kindly. And his few meager possessions, his few simple, not fancy possessions. And so it was that on this night that the two sat together by their fire of twigs. They were footsore and weary from walking the many miles towards the royal palace. As he listened to Pat practicing for the contest, a sudden thought flashed through young Tom's mind. I could lose to this ridiculous old man. So, as Old Pat turned his head for a second, the wicked boy quickly snapped a string on Pat's harp and pushed his own spare string deep inside his bag. "I'm sorry for your trouble," he said to Old Pat, "but I have no string to lend to give you, for I might need it myself." Old Pat sighed. He had no money to buy a new string. The harping contest was as good as lost. So if you look back here in the picture, You can see on the harp that a string is broken. Then, suddenly through the darkness came a cry. Help! The two men shivered, for they knew tales of tricks played on poor travelers by the villain leprechauns. Surely 'tis the little people that are after us, whispered young Tom. But as the voice rose to a wail, old Pat's kindness of heart proved stronger than his fear of leprechaun tricks. We must find out who's in trouble, he cried to Tom. Not I, declared young Tom. I'll have nothing to do with it. I'll not take the risk of missing the contest. He turned his back to the voice and covered his ears. That's not very kind, young Tom. On shaking legs, old Pat walked towards the sound of the voice. In cleaning, he saw a tiny man with his foot down a rabbit hole. Help me, sir, cried the little man. I took my shoes off to rest my feet, and a rabbit has taken hold of my big toe. Help me! From deep in the burrow came the shrill laugh of the rabbit. Let go, you rogue, the little man yelled down the hole. I'll have you for dinner, you Peasley bag of flea-ridden fur. Here's the bunny grabbing his toe. I'll soon fix that scoundrel, thought old Pat. He bent down and barked piercingly as a fox might in the night. The rabbit let out a scream of fright and popped the little man's toe. Thank you, cried the leprechaun. For a leprechaun he was. Come, said Pat, trying not to laugh, for a funnier sight he thought never to see. I've not much to offer, but what I have you're welcome to share. Old Tom is so generous. When we talk about character traits, I'm going to use generous to describe him. He's willing to give his things away even though he only has a few. Old Pat led the leprechaun back to the fire. I see your fellow traveler has up and gone, said the leprechaun. A brave fellow indeed he proved to be, but I thank you kindly for your help. I'd like to repay you. I'll be needing no payment, answered old Pat. He picked up his harp and began to play a soft tune to soothe the little man. So here's old Pat playing his harp. You play well, said the leprechaun, but I'm thinking your harp is not in a good way. I have a broken string, answered old Pat sadly. I'm on my way to the harping contest at the royal palace, but I'll not win now. I have no money to buy a new string. Looks like here the leprechaun is thinking. Ah, declared the leprechaun sharply. So it's the gold you'll be wanting. No, indeed, cried old Pat, mighty alarmed. He knew terrible things happened to those who searched for crocks of leprechaun gold. Ah, but yes, I think it is so, answered the leprechaun firmly. My prediction is that they're going to go try and find this gold. Suddenly, old Pat's eyes would not stop from closing. With a sigh, he fell asleep. The leprechaun blew a silvery note on his whistle. Out of the forest came a band of little men, each carrying a bag. He wants the gold, said the leprechaun, as he told the tale of old Pat. You know what to do. The little men nodded solemnly as they clicked open their bags. Now there's multiple leprechauns. I wonder what's going to happen here. When old Pat awakened the next morning, he looked around in fright, but the leprechaun was gone. It's a lucky escape I had, cried old Pat, and he packed up his harp case and set off for the royal palace. These are actually what the hills of Ireland look like. They're this green and beautiful. Lots of sheep. As old Pat reached the courtyard, young Tom took stage, looking mighty pleased and confident. He began to play a sweet tune, but, as if bewitched, the strings on his harp began to break. One by one, they twanged and twitched and twirled in the air until they all lay dangling. Young Tom gazed at his harp in horror. But then he knew. Leprechauns, he muttered as he hung his head and shuffled from the stage. Looks like the leprechauns got into some naughty work, and they took all the strings off of greedy Tom's harp. Now it was old Pat's turn. With sadness in his heart, the old man reached for his harp. Then his eyes widened, for there, inside his bag, lay a glittering golden harp. The leprechaun's gold! Gasped old Pat. Oh, goodness, that is so exciting. As the magic seized their feet, the people began to dance. Soon the courtyard was filled with a dancing, singing, laughing crowd. The other harpists knew now that this was Pat's day and danced along with the people. Even young Tom, who had learned a hard lesson, found generosity growing in his heart. Oh, generosity. He's going to be generous. He's going to give to other people, maybe. When the final note faded away, the king rose from his throne and beckoned to Pat. "Old man," said the king, "the prize is yours. Never have I heard such music. From now on, you will play always for me and my people. You are awarded the Royal Harpist of Ireland." There he is, all the people at the party. It says, from the nearby forest came the tinkling sound of a little leprechaun laughing. There are 16 four-leaf clovers in all in this book. Can you find them all? So four-leaf clovers are lucky. I don't know if any of you guys had a chance to read this one in school, but when we come back, you can look for the 16 clovers. So we were learning in class about how books teach you a lesson, right? And why don't you go ahead and pause this video and think about what the lesson that the author is trying to teach us might be here. Now that you've unpaused, I think that the lesson of this is that people who are generous to others and are not selfish or greedy, they end up getting what they want in the end. They are showing you here that young Tom chose to be greedy and selfish, and he didn't help other people, and that ended up not helping him in the end. Okay, a connection I can make to real life is a lot of people are going to grocery stores and being really greedy and taking a lot more than they need just in case they need it. They're being selfish, right? So something that we can do in real life to follow the lesson of the story is when we go to the grocery store to make sure we're buying what we need, so that there's some stuff left for other people too. I hope you enjoyed today's reading of The Leprechaun's Gold. Bye, students. I miss you.